Happy Monday, and welcome to another Countdown to Launch where we talk about upcoming Kickstarters that will be launching soon. We talk to their creators. I'm Roberto. I run a small YouTube channel called Sheer Boredom where we talk about same thing that we're doing here, different things in the board game industry, but we're not here to talk about me. Today, we're going to talk to Mr. Ben Downton, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming game, Micro Dojo. How are you
Hey,
today?
thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm doing good.
Excellent. So it is, tell us about yourself and about your game.
Yeah, it's the hardest bit, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, absolutely.
um, so I'm Ben, based out in Dubai. So we've got a bit of a time difference here. So a little bit about Micro Dojo. It's a two-player game. It's a micro game, as you might have guessed from the title. So it's very, very small. So it's a two-player kind of tactical game where you're one of two daimyo based in Edo period Japan. You've been tasked by the shogun to bring prosperity to this small town, and you're going to maneuver the town's retainers around this 3x3 board, the dojo, to gather resources, to build buildings, score objectives, and to win favor with the shogun. And then the most prosperous daimyo gets granted title to the town. So that's the game in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So even though it has the word micro in it, I mean, that doesn't mean it could have been a small or big board. Like, even though the
It could
name
have been.
micro
It's
is in it.
actually we talked about it just before, but it's very tiny. So this is the full game on this punch board. We can maybe talk about it a little bit more. This is one of the samples I got from the printers just the other day. So if I pull out the board here, yes, it really is a micro game.
Wow.
It's pocket sized.
That's awesome. So micro game at a micro price, because we did talk about that
Yes.
as well. How much is the game going to be when it launches?
So I'm launching. It's £5 at launch, which is about $6 or $7. And the key thing for it is not just that I wanted to make it really cheap to produce and to sort of pack as much value into the game as possible. It's also I wanted to make it really cheap to ship because I've gone through a process quite a lot with other Kickstarters where I think, hey, that's a cool game. Yeah, I'm interested in that. And then I add the tax, and then I add the shipping, and I'm like, oh, actually, I'm paying twice as much as, or sometimes
Yeah,
even half as much the cost of the game again in shipping. So, as you can see from the size, it's actually the size to fit inside a C5 envelope, which is the biggest envelope that still counts as a letter for shipping, which means it's super cheap to ship. So within UK and Europe, I think it's just about £1 to ship, and international, so the whole of the rest of the world, it's about £2 to ship. So super cheap to get it out to people.
that's awesome. Again, micro game at a micro price. Definitely be
Yeah,
checking that
that's
out
right.
once it pops through. Although you have a website on WordPress and
hmm
you have an availability for a print and play at the moment.
I've actually just taken the print to play down. So the
Okay.
whole of the run up, sort of from pretty much from day one, actually, I had the print and play available, so we could do play testing, and anyone that wanted to try it could kind of give it a go basically and give their feedback. As time went on, that became more and more developed. It still offered the print and play to anyone that was interested in signing up to the mailing list, and basically my way of saying, thanks for being involved as part of this. Feel free to print it out and play it.
Mhm.
Because it's going to be included as part of the pledges for the campaign. Basically, anyone that backs it at any level, even if you just take just $1 to follow along with the campaign, I'll still send out the high resolution print and play copies to people. So it's come down a month before that. That said, it is still available to play online on like a tabletop simulator module. That's still available. That's going to be free forever as long as people want to play it. I love tabletop simulator. It's a great way of finding new games, and so yeah, I'll be on there forever.
Absolutely awesome. I'm glad that you have that dollar pledge on there because sometimes I don't want it. Like to your point, here is this big game, shipping, taxes, all this stuff. You're paying so much more. But then I like
Yeah.
to think it's because of my dollar. That is why you got funded. It was because of that. But it
Yeah,
also gives you access to the pledge manager and whatnot. So that's cool that
yeah.
you have that on there.
And instead of getting a big thank you in the credits, you get a $1 thank you in the credits,
Yeah,
but it it
cool.
still counts.
Yeah, everything does count. Absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the theme. What made you decide
hmm
with your theme of the game? Um,
hmm
did you try different themes before you decided to go with the dojo inspired?
hmm It started out some games I've ended up thinking about sort of from the theme first, and then tried to sort of kind of enshrine that theme within the game. With micro games, and particularly I've thought of a few sort of micro games first before coming up with this one. It tended to start with the mechanics first because the mechanics were much easier to sort of enshrine in a complete package. So the movement mechanic in Micro Dojo is the really unique part, and the part that basically leads to all of the tactical decisions. The part where you're actually kind of gathering the resources, building the buildings, gaining points, scoring objectives. That's almost like the framework which kind of captures the main experience, which is this tactical movement. So the dojo theme was kind of the first step I took from that mechanical theme because of the type movement, that sort of interactivity, the way you're sort of almost sparring by moving around, kind of adjacent to each other. So that was it. The game was actually just called Dojo as a working title when I first started, and then Micro Dojo kind of stuck. Then when I developed the theme a little bit further, I sort of took what was pretty well known to me. I'm a big fan of like a lot of Euro games. So, you're gathering resources. 2 resources seemed like a good sort of balancing mechanism. So having gold and food together, and then building buildings was sort of the way of sort of gaining extra abilities, and then that leads to sort of objectives which let you score points by the sort of tasks from the shogun. So that was kind of how the theme built up. There was potentially a change of theme sort of early on in the design process where it was still based in Edo period Japan. I loved that sort of the theme and the era. Very evocative. There's lots of good information out there for doing research. I had quite a lot of support from other people sort of involved with that to sort of help me on the historical accuracy and some of the cultural aspects as well. So I did consider a change to Micro Daimyo, where the board is much more sort of town focused, and a small sort of mechanics change where instead of taking available buildings sort of from next to the board into your supply, you're actually putting them next to the board. So you are literally building this town. But by that point, one of the things that didn't test very well is a lot of people didn't actually know what daimyo were unless you were more familiar with sort of some of the history and the theme. And the other sort of aspect of that is the dojo theme with the sort of the movement and the sparring and that tight sort of combat feel was really the core aspect of the game that I wanted to capture. So the dojo theme just kind of stuck, and the more I say Micro Dojo, the more it sounds right.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounded right when I read what the game was called.
Yeah,
Micro Dojo just comes off the lips so easily. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, how did you get? I should have asked you this first. What was the idea behind making Micro Dojo?
Yeah, so Micro Dojo isn't the first game that I started work in game design on. Maybe I could start with sort of the journey.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
basically around probably May last year, lockdown like everyone else, and I'm thinking, you know what, I need something creative to do. I'd done a lot of cooking, done a lot of exercise at home, and I was like, okay, what can I do to kind of create something? And I thought I'd create a video game, and I had an idea for creating like a twin stick shooter video game. I spent probably 2 or 3 hours watching videos on playing around with Unity and decided, you know what, this is going to be way too hard. And then my brother said to me, well, have you thought about making it as a board game? Because I play a lot of board games. We have a great board gaming group here in Dubai, and yeah, board games are life. So I thought about it, and then I tried making it as a board game. I spent a couple of months on that. And it didn't really go anywhere. I think the more I developed that game, the more it wasn't really going where I wanted it to. But it did kind of give me the bug for designing. Instead of just designing one game, I'd like to design many and actually have a future in board game design. And this is where Micro Dojo came in. So I had a chat with a friend of mine, Dan, who created Land of the Game, and he'd recently been through the Kickstarter experience. I'd met him when he was traveling to Dubai to present his game for playtesting. And we just had a really long chat about game design in general and getting started in the industry and things. And he said, look, one of the challenges they had was no one really knew who they were. They kind of came out of nowhere. And so it was really hard to get people on board to back a larger game because people are a bit nervous about Kickstarter campaigns that don't deliver, or they take years to deliver. Even from established companies, it can take years to finally get your product. So he said, look, why don't you start with something that's really small, really simple, something you're not going to lose a ton of money on if it all goes pear-shaped, and something to kind of get that experience. And then my inspiration was a board game called Province, which a friend of mine gave me in 2015 back on Kickstarter. It was a $5 board game. He presented it to me when we were on the train on the way to a wedding together. And he said, look, I've got this game. It's $5. It comes in a little plastic bag. It was, in fact, it was exactly this size because I measured all of their components and used that as a framework. And we played this little worker placement Euro game on the train. It took 15, 20 minutes. And when we were done, I put it like in my jacket pocket, and that was it. That was the game. And I thought, oh, what a great design. It's a tiny game, slips in my pocket. We play it for 20 minutes, have fun, and that's it. So I thought, what a great design for a micro game, and that's where my kind of inspiration to create a micro game came from.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Two things. First of all, right, it just says Facebook user, but Micro Dojo for the win. You're going to crush it. Oh, Devin M.
It's Devin. Hey, Devin.
Yes. And you just said something interesting. What does something going pear-shaped mean? Because I've never heard that
Oh,
before.
sorry, that's probably a British phrase. It just means going wrong.
Okay, that's what I thought. I've never heard it.
Yeah. It's probably the polite thing to say when we're on camera rather than what I was going to say.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me to a whole new term.
Pear-shaped is not a good thing.
Okay. All right. I got to keep that one in my back pocket then for later then when I'm talking to my friends.
Yeah.
I've never seen a game that small. Have you seen other games, micro, if you will, after the game that your friend presented to you?
There's definitely a ton of micro games out there. Like Button Shy is probably the one that originally also immediately comes to mind because Button Shy do so many kind of like micro games. They do like 18 card games, like wallet sized games, where they come in like a little wallet and that's it. There's also a lot of games that are towards the smaller end. I don't know if you'd count them as micro. So Love Letter, I'm a big fan of. Comes in a little bag, and that's it. I take it traveling with me. I also know that we haven't been traveling much the last year and a half, but yeah. I'm hoping that travel is on a lot of people's minds. It's certainly on my mind at the moment. So having travel games that you can kind of bust out, play, they don't have a huge long setup, they don't have a huge learning curve. You can pack them away again, and they don't take up too much table space as well.
They also go through airport security pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I've been through airport security with a bunch of minis for wargaming, and yeah, you have to allow a bit of extra time there.
Yeah, right. Oh man. So from Micro Dojo, what are you most proud of with this game that you've created?
There's a few things I suppose that I've really focused on whilst delivering it. Number one, I think, is how much game I've been able to pack into the tiny space. Like it feels like it would be really, really limiting to have such a small space. But then you realize the more you do it, actually, there's even more game you could pack in there. Like you can do things like double-siding tokens. You can have like a different board layout on the back. I've managed to fit in things like an advanced game mode where I've taken some of the content that I created that wouldn't fit in the token space, but turned that into an advanced game mode with extra abilities that fits in part of the rulebook. So you can really pack a ton of stuff in there. One of my sort of complaints about Province, I would say, is I love the game, but once you've played it maybe 6-7 times, you kind of feel like you're doing the same thing each time. And that was one of the things I really wanted to address with the micro game is, you know what, if you pay $5 for a game and you play it 5-6 times and then you never play it again, you've still got pretty good value out of it. But absolutely. I really wanted to make it a good game you would want to replay more than just a few times and feel like, okay, I've explored everything it has to offer. So it's got a modular system of objectives. So you will choose 5 out of 9 available objectives, or 14 if you're playing the advanced game. So you're choosing 5 of them, but also the order of them is relevant because you're scoring them from sort of left to right as you go. Same with the buildings. There's 12 buildings in the game, but you're only going to have 6 of them available for each game. Then if you add the advanced mode, you've got different movement abilities for each of those meeples. So I think I calculated at some point if you look at the start conditions for the game, and after that it's a game of perfect information. There's no randomness. It's just in the setup. There's something like 3 billion different variations for setup. So I'm pretty happy. Probably if you play
Wow.
3 billion times, I've played about 100 times and I still quite enjoy the game.
Yeah.
If you play 3 billion, I'm okay if you get a little tired of it after 3 billion games.
And at that point, it's like 0.000 1 cents, right? You just get so
Yeah,
much money out of the game.
yeah, you've had your money's worth. Probably the board will be worn down to like a nub at this point.
So it sounds like there may be room for an expansion soon. Have you thought about an expansion to Micro Dojo already, or is it in the
Yeah, I've
works?
definitely thought about it. Some of it is due to feedback other people have had while sort of playing the game. Some of it is content that I've not been able to fit into the main game, or things that are a little bit more sort of out there or more advanced. You can kind of play with those ideas. I actually find creating expansion content for something is quite. I find it quite easy actually, because um, we can see that when I do launch the expansion, you can quote me on that. But you kind of what you're doing with expansion content, really, if you look at a lot of successful expansions, is you're taking the core rule set of your game. Like ideally, your rule set is tight, and you have those limitations. So everything fits in that framework, and then you're saying, okay, what rules can I break? So I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but we've got two resources in the game. So okay, what would a third resource bring? Okay, we have characters with different movement abilities. Okay, what would additional characters and movement abilities look like? So you can extend the ideas you have and kind of break some of those rules. And that's a really good way of sort of building expansion content. And a few other ideas I have that I won't share just yet. We'll wait till the main ones out of the way first before I tell
Yeah,
people
yeah,
like,
got to
hey,
keep
there's
those
more
close to the
coming.
chest. Got to keep those close to the chest.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of people here saying, looking forward to seeing the campaign launch and go Micro
Oh,
Dojo.
it's 3 weeks today exactly.
Excellent,
Um,
excellent.
a little bit earlier than this time, but yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there with my finger nervously hovering over the button, thinking like, oh, what have I forgotten?
That's
that
actually a
launch
good
button.
segue into my next question for you. Were there a lot of challenges and failures regarding this
Hmm.
putting well, just put everything together on Kickstarter? Because I know
Hmm.
navigating Kickstarter is its own beast.
Yeah, that's been a ton of work, and it's funny when I sort of started out in the design space, people were saying that if you go the publishing route rather than going self-publishing, sort of the commission you can expect is around sort of 5%. And I thought, as a new designer, I was like, wow, 5%, and you've created this game out of nothing, and you've play tested it and gone to all this effort, and that seems like such a small amount for all the work you've done to create this game. Um, just a very rough estimate of my time. I think well under 5% of my time has been spent on the actual game design, and the rest has been on all the other things needed to bring a campaign to life. That makes it sound like I haven't play tested the game very much. It's had about 100 play tests, but that part is actually quite easy to iterate and to make progress. And if I look back, actually from the first prototype through to kind of commissioning the artwork, which is the point where I thought, okay, it's not going to fundamentally change. There might be some balance changes and things. Was probably about six weeks or so, and then about maybe 2.5 months by the time the artwork got sort of finished and closer to finalized. Then to prepare for the campaign has been about 7 to 8 months after that, and it's been much harder work, much more intense work to do that. Things like logistics and customs is still giving me headaches. Might be a good point to talk about it, but the main thing I wanted to do with Micro Dojo also that I hadn't really liked about other Kickstarter campaigns was I wanted Micro Dojo to be complete at launch, so you don't have to wait a year for the game to arrive or for it to be finished. And I'm also
Thank
pride
you.
my
Thank you for that.
it's something that I would want as a backer, because I know when I back
Yeah,
something, I'm like, oh my god, this looks amazing. I really want this.
yeah,
And then basically my experience recently has been, this game looks really cool. I like this. Okay, actually, maybe I'll get some add-ons because it's only a few more bucks. Like, yeah, I want to have the nice version. Oh, hang on. Then there's tax on top in the pledge manager, and then there's shipping. Oh, I'm not really sure. I'm not excited about it. I've just spent a fortune on this. I'm not sure I wanted to pay $100 for this game. I was
yeah.
prepared to pay 40. And then the next thing I get is an email saying, "Thanks very much for your support." And then maybe a few months later, I get an email that says, we're really sorry it's been delayed. Oh, we're sorry shipping costs have gone up. Or it seems to be almost like every campaign needs to say, sorry, shipping's been delayed. Sorry, the costs have gone up. So I wanted to fulfill straight away. I've set the limit to be like only the first 500 copies I can fulfill straight away. mainly because I know that's what I can reasonably handle. And then if it ends up getting out of control, then we'll do a wave 2 where I can have some more structure, handle a larger freight, and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get it out to backers straight away. So that means it's complete at launch, easy to ship. I don't have to ship a year from now when prices are going to go up and things like that. It's all kind of handled. But then if we do talk about sort of failures and challenges, that also means that I've needed to have everything in place before the campaign launches, because I don't
Right.
want to promise something that I can't deliver. And the very last thing that has been on my plate for the last 3 months has been getting it into the country so I can ship it. That's the last thing, the last headache I still have.
I
Yeah,
can
that's the
see
most
you.
challenging.
I know you're not going to be the one fulfilling the shipment, but I could see you just getting
Mm.
a whole stack of these and going, okay, envelope, next
That is
person.
that is that is actually my plan. Yeah. So
Oh, really? So you're going to be individually
yeah,
packaging
yeah,
all
for
these?
sure.
Wow, that's
Because
awesome.
so I looked into fulfillment partners. This is something about launching a micro game, is because I wanted to keep the cost down as much as possible. It meant a lot of this stuff I've had to do myself. So it's been a fantastic experience because I've learned a ton. And then in future, when I create larger games, because really this game is about reaching as many people as possible, being able to deliver a good experience, being able to deliver a high quality game so that hopefully these people will be fans of future games. And then when I want to produce a larger big box game, I'm not an inexperienced designer coming out of nowhere that has to email people saying, "Oh, sorry, I miscalculated shipping," or "Sorry, it's going to be delayed." I've been able to go through all of this stuff beforehand with a game that if I do make a mistake, or I do end up miscosting something, it's not going to bankrupt me. Whereas if I go for $150 game with deluxe resin miniatures and all of this, and find that you've made, you reach 10,000 people with a $5 mistake, suddenly that becomes a $50,000 mistake, and yeah.
You say, uh
Sorry, I was
oh.
talking about something. I was talking about something else. I got distracted. um,
Can you see Micro Dojo being an upgrade, quote unquote upgraded? Can you see it having a
mhm,
board with metal resources or
mhm.
um, like plastic meeples, or can you see that happen?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about it, and it is something I know Kickstarter loves a deluxe add-on. If you want to get a game, then yeah, why not go for the add-on with the nice
Yeah,
pieces and all of this. I've looked into lots of things like, for example, a box. It sounds like the simplest thing, right? But getting a box then to fit into the packaging we have, one that fits the game, one that can get sort of printed economically for the number of backers we'll have, and so on, has been quite challenging.
yeah,
So my plan for this at the moment, this is all subject to change once the Kickstarter campaign goes, because it'll depend on sort of what people want and how large the campaign goes, whether we can do this stuff. My intention is to keep this one super simple. So there's two pledge levels. There's one copy which will fit inside a C5 envelope. That's it. You get your one copy. You get the punch board, which is this. You get the folded rulebook, which it's about the size of the game itself, but that's it. That's everything you need. With this is just the how to play along here.
mm,
And you get a little plastic baggie to keep it in. I did try and look to see if I could include like a card, like a flat packed tuck box or something like that. But all the ones I tried, they just weren't strong enough for such a small size. And I'd rather give people you know, let's say a less good solution that works well, which is the plastic bag with the rulebook being the nice cover for that, rather than a better solution, which is a tuck box that's going to fall apart after 3 or 4 uses. And I think that leads
right.
to sort of more of a negative experience than perhaps the less exciting option. The plan would be, as you mentioned, the expansions to then to add in all of those extra things. Now I have a bit more experience and also able to get a better idea of what the demand is and so on, to produce things like some nice wooden screen printed meeples instead of the cardboard cutout ones. I would like, but I haven't looked into whether it's feasible yet, to do a I forget what you call them, like you have like a 2-layer board. So you have like a cutaway where you can keep sort of the pieces in,
Oh, a recess
like
board.
yeah, recess board.
Yeah,
That's it. That would be nice because it's a travel game. Something like that would, or it can
yeah.
be a travel game. Something like that would be nice to sort of keep the pieces in a bit more stable. Yeah, so things like the Meeple add-on and a nice like rigid box instead of a sort of a plastic bag and things like that. So that is probably something I'll look to in the expansion. If it's possible to do it this campaign, I would love to. And if there's enough demand and enough people say like, hey, I really want this, I'm like, okay, I'll look into it. I'll be working pretty hard on the 3 weeks the campaign's live. But the main thing I don't want to do is disrupt the promise that I'm going to get this stuff shipped out early. That's something I see and with a lot of games as well, a lot of campaigns. Something that also bothers me is when we see all these stretch goals. It's either content that feels like it's fake hype. It's like, oh, we're going to add one more card to the game. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you could just add that. You don't need another
Yeah. They were gonna
$10,000
do it
to add
anyways.
one
Like
card. Yeah.
you get the email. Oh, by the way, we're gonna add this because it was already planned.
Yeah, and maybe I'm different, but me personally, by the time I've hit back on a campaign, like I'm already sold. I'm not once I've backed, I'm not that much more excited by
Yeah.
one more card, or like I'm already sold on your campaign. Like I'm in. Or the other thing I see with stretch goals is where there's some really awesome stretch goals where we're going to have like upgraded components, and we're going to change this, and we're going to turn our flat paper cutouts into 3D models and things like that. But then that takes a lot of time, and then that potentially impacts the delivery on the campaign. So this is again why I wanted to have complete at launch, basic pledge levels. So you get either one copy or 2+. You can add other copies as add-ons for no extra shipping, because it all ships inside a large letter with Royal Mail at that point. So that's your options, at least at launch. So it's not going to delay the campaign. We're not going to have crazy stretch goals that I'm going to have to say, hey, sorry, it's taking time at the printers. It's ready to go.
Yeah. Cool. So I actually have 2 more questions for you before we wrap up for the afternoon. And this one came to me while I was talking. I forget who I was talking to, but normally on my own show, I like to ask, what is your desert island game? But I actually morphed that to, because I saw Castaway with Tom Hanks for the first time ever, like 2 weeks ago.
Is this going to be a beard comment?
No, not at all. Although, your beard is, I wish I could grow a beard like that.
It's an official
I
lockdown beard. It started around the same time I started game design, so take from that what you will.
Awesome. What would be the game you would have on an island? Like, remember Wilson, the ball, right? It was his handprint with the face. What board game would you have with you to talk to?
Oh, trying to think now. Immediately when you said that with the face, what came to mind was we've been playing Anachrony a bit lately, and I quite like it. And I've been thinking of the Guardian mechs. Yeah. I think it's the Guardians with the big faces on them. And when you said that, I could just think of the Guardian faces, but they're kind of mean looking. So I'm probably not having a great time on that island anyway. But yeah, that's what came to mind. So yeah, me and one of the Guardian mechs talking to each other.
I like it. All right, cool. And last but not least, because I'm sure we're going to be doing this again, when do you launch?
May 10th. So yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today.
You'll be hovering.
Yeah, and it's going to be it's going live around like 4 p.m. UAE time, which should be like late evening for sort of Australia time, pretty early morning if you're on west coast of the US, and around like midday for the UK. So yeah, it should hopefully no one will be asleep at that time.
Yeah. So we actually just got a message in. Best wishes for a successful campaign, Ben, and thank you for being such a valuable member of the design community. Your enthusiasm is infectious.
Oh, well, thanks. It just says Facebook user, so I can't see who it is, but I'll try and find them afterwards and say thanks.
We will hunt you down and thank you.
Yes. Yeah. You can't hide.
You cannot hide from us. All right. Thank you, Ben, for spending some time with me this afternoon.
Cool. Yeah, my pleasure.
Looking forward to do this again, but until we do, happy gaming.
Great. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.